Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Shankapotamus. I'm Ian Richards, and that is Jay Hamilton. I hope that way. Is it that way, Jay?
It is that way.
Yes.
It is that way. You got it right.
Technology. So we're back again with the kind of video format. As we said on the last episode, we'll still ping the audio file into those other platforms that we've been using. But yeah, welcome along. It's episode 5. We have action-packed and fun-filled episode. Ahead of us, we've got an interview with someone from overseas, a very close friend of mine who coaches in England, and we're going to kind of discuss some differences between US youth soccer, UK youth soccer, what he does specifically out there, and then what's our whiteboard piece, Jay?
Whiteboard piece is 9v9 this time.
Oh, yeah.
So we go over some different formations with that and some attacking and some defensive setups within those formations. So good little tutorial on just kind of novice setup on that piece. So should be good.
Yeah. But we'll start with our little kind of our section that we get on and we discuss what's going on in the world of soccer, and we're going to start domestically with this one. National team programs, the kind of current state of US women and the US men, with them both often, well, they both are because they often do host January camps. I think we'll start with the women. So they just played, they played 2 games against Colombia in the last week-ish and had a camp from when I'm not quite sure when they all got together. But anyway, we'll talk about them first and move on to the men, because the men's program play in 6 days' time. I'm just looking at it online now.
Yeah, they're coming up pretty soon here.
Yeah, they play Trinidad and Tobago, so that seems a bit mean. They have to play against 22.
It's the old classic Ian joke there.
I know, 2 countries. It's not fair.
It's like when you play Brighton Hove and Albion,
right,
you know?
Yeah, Brighton and Hove.
Yeah, you got to play them.
So yeah, men are coming up this weekend. The women just played twice. I already know the answer to this, but did you see the games?
I did not actually, just with my schedule in terms of, we're back out on the field training and doing those things in camps. So caught highlights, saw lineups, stuff like that, but didn't actually get to sit and watch the full match.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the games I was up at the camp, and one went on our TV in the house, but Alexis, my wife, watched, and I was getting kind of play-by-play from her as I was playing with her.
She was commentating.
Yeah, she muted JP Della Camera and Fowdy, Julie
gave her own synopsis of what was going on.
Yeah, which was better than what was available from the actual commentators.
Sure.
The pair of them are not great, but yeah, I got to, from another room in the house, I got to hear Alexis's frustrations. Yeah, with how the game went, but also just the personnel that are out there, which is what I want to get on my own soapbox about. Is and we're kind of comparing and contrasting the men's side in a few minutes here, but yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts on, obviously, if maybe if you were in the hot seat, the new women's coach, would you have gone down the route that he's gone with squad and really the point that I want to make is the squad announcement and then the lineup. I have been for a while, just the old guard still being around, and obviously I think they've probably earned the right to stick around with being back-to-back World Cup winners. Like this is, we can't take that away from those experienced ladies that are out there. But I just on paper, I almost frustrated at the women's program to still see the likes of Rapinoe, Lloyd, O'Hara, Krieger, Sauerbrand's up there in terms of appearances. Naya is obviously the number 1 goalie. But again, do those players really need to dress in a January camp in a friendly against Colombia? Nothing against Colombia, but I mean, even if it was a higher ranked team, it's a January camp with there's stuff further in the future, obviously, in the calendar. Hopefully the Olympics does go ahead and in the summer after being pushed back a year. But for me, yeah, just a little bit disappointed to kind of to see those names on the starting sheet and even dressed as a sub with some of these lesser experienced players almost like denied the opportunity to be out there. Just, I don't know.
Right.
What do you think?
Yeah, no, I mean, my thoughts are, I mean, if I was in the coach's situations, I get it in terms of why you're bringing in those players because, you know, you want to make yourself look good with quote unquote what the best is out there currently. But, you know, I tend to agree with you as well as, you know, it's you're playing against a lesser opponent that regardless of probably really who we put out there, we should be able to handle Columbia in that facet. And so why not give the younger kids a run out? You know, I did look through the lineups and who got in and all that stuff. And, you know, for example, you know, Sophie Smith on that first day, you know, she got to suit up, but, you know, didn't even get in. One of the few that didn't get in. And then in the next game, didn't even suit up. You know, and there was some, I think you said some players in the camp that were in the camp but didn't even suit up either of the two games. So,
yeah, I think it was
you
Mal.
know,
I want to say it was Mal.
Yeah, the thought process behind that, you know, why are you bringing those players in when you're not even going to take a look at them in that environment? Or maybe it was an injury. Who knows? I mean, in terms of those pieces, but you know, I tend to agree with you. I'm wondering the same thing. I have a feeling it's what you said in terms of they've earned the right to be there, right? Back-to-back World Cup winners. You know, maybe the Olympics is their last hurrah per se, right? In terms of that piece. But yeah, I think we need to start getting these young females in and seeing what we have and seeing who's going to replace.
Yeah, and there's a few that did. I mean, it's not all
right.
Like every single player is a seasoned veteran, and it's a friendly, so you can make a ton of subs and so on and so forth. But again, I guess for me, it's just we're not watching the game either, and then seeing the two score lines 4-0 and 6-0, and you're like, well, could we, from a perception piece, could we have just thrown a bunch of inexperienced women out there that could go at them for 45 or 60?
Right.
The coach is worried about his own reputation and his own win and loss record. You know,
right. Then you bring in those
and
players.
Then bring on the veterans, and if it's a close one, then they pull away, or if it's a tie game or whatever, and it's like, it was just a bit like, does Rapinoe really need to start both games?
Right. Yeah.
No. Like, we know what she can do. Like, you know, good, like, technical player, a leader. Like, I'm sure come the Olympics, absolutely she'd be on the team sheet. But again, like January, like, and there's fitness element, there's valuable minutes to be had. I understand all of that bit, but yeah, like, I guess I'm on the site now actually just to, like, Crystal Dunn is out there, 105 caps. Julia, 103. Ali Krieger, 107. Even someone like Lindsay Horan has already made 86 appearances. We kind of know what Lindsay's going to give.
Correct.
The squad, and she's, I believe, struggled. Did she test? She got COVID, maybe something like that. I feel like I read, or
I think earlier on, I mean, I think she's good now, but
so she's coming back. And again, like, you've got to come to camp and kind of get the fitness levels up. But did they need to take the field? So
well, and they didn't even have any of the players that were playing overseas.
Well, the two United players didn't.
Yeah.
I think Heath's injured. She hasn't played for United the last couple of
games. Yeah, she's hurt right now. Yeah.
And Press didn't travel. They said they almost like withdrew or declined the invite because they didn't. I think COVID related probably. With
I think some of those clubs are not allowing or don't want that to happen during this time because of that piece.
But the two City players came, which is Rose and Sam Mewis.
Right.
And obviously, Sam Mewis scored a trick in one of the games.
Right. Yeah, she did in that first game. Yeah.
But again, she's won 68 appearances. And, like, I mean, one of the strongest central midfielders in the women's game worldwide. It's like she needs to. does she need to travel, right, overseas, risk?
Right. She's playing. Yeah,
Put
she's playing
herself
all
at
the
risk.
time. Right
And
at City.
she's like,
Yeah.
she's playing all the time at City. She's in,
Right.
get the film from, call
Right.
call up Man City and get the film from
Right.
the games and be like, okay, she's taken care of. We don't necessarily need to see what she is, but that gives an opportunity to one of these younger players potentially. Or I don't know. I was a bit frustrated with it, but I guess that kind of brings us to the men because they've pretty much gone the opposite with their squad announcement for their January camp. They're playing again in Orlando, which is where the women were based, against Trinidad. And they just bring up the stats so that I can spit the facts. The average roster of 25 players Greg Berhalter has brought in. The average caps for that roster is 10.
Right.
20 players of 25 have played less than 10 times, and 10 players haven't even made their debut yet.
Right.
Like, to me, that is like spot on exactly what I perceive January camp to be.
Right. And it's also probably, two different programs going in two different directions right now, right? I mean, obviously the women are more established and that credibility behind their name. The men, what is their identity right now? I don't know if they have one, right? And I 100% agree with what the men are doing right now, just because it's almost like a rebuild, right? It's like we got to figure out who we are, what we have. I don't think the old guard in the men's game is needed, honestly, to be fair.
Nope.
It's
let's
see what we got.
Other than appearances, there's not really anything else to shout about if you're a veteran men's player, is there? Because you haven't won anything.
No. Right. Go with the young guard. I mean, I know a lot of our prominent young players are playing overseas now, right? You get the McKinneys and the Pulisic's and those guys that will be on the team sheet when it comes to something important, which is nice. But you need to also see what is going on with these youngers as well and filling those holes in when needed. So I like the direction that Berhalter's going right now.
Yeah. And I guess the world soccer calendar doesn't lean in the favor of hosting a January camp because of, obviously, like, say, McKinney, Pulisic, Josh Sargent, so on and so on. They're in the clubs won't even release them. They'd be like, no. Juventus.
We're in the thick of things. You're not getting them.
So there's a lot of MLS players, a lot of young players, like say 10 that haven't even made an appearance yet. 20 of the 25 have played less than 10. There's 3 Rapids players on there, which is always nice to see.
Some
local
hometown stuff.
Local team. Sam Vines is in there. He's a Colorado kid, if I'm not mistaken, right? And then Kellen Acosta and Jonathan Lewis, who Rapids had signed in the last couple of years, are also on there. I'm just checking I didn't miss anyone. It's 3. But I like that decision from Berhalter to do it, right? And it's
it's a good time, right?
The worst that could happen, right? They get beat by Trinidad. Well, they already did that to not play in the World Cup.
Right, exactly, right. So
how bad can it get?
Yeah.
And I think they'll probably almost doing this type of squad earns you that like freebie, right? In a friendly, like, oh, we played a bunch of kids, we lost to a lower nation. Okay,
right.
Look at what I know. Jurgen Klinsmann's not exactly a popular figure now that he obviously had a stint with the US and whatever, but like what he did with Germany, he pretty much announced it publicly and was like, all the old guard, out.
Yep.
We're building for 4 years time or 3 years, however long he had, and off they went. And obviously they've got a much different structure within the country for youth.
Yeah. What do we have? Less than 2 years now for the next World Cup.
For the
2022, right?
Yeah.
2022.
But it's a winter.
It's a winter.
I think
it's a winter. Yep.
Isn't it the end of this year, technically, because it's a winter one? I feel like it might.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, but I mean, let's say it's 2 years, right? I mean,
air-conditioned
yeah,
stadiums in Qatar.
yeah. I mean, it's
Now to Google it.
yeah. I mean, it makes sense that, we need to figure out what that's going to look like. I mean, Berhalter should know what he has in terms of his top players, right? You need to figure out who's next after that, right?
Yeah, who's next and who can put the pressure on some of
those
yep. players, right? Like build the competition. And again, to come back to the women's program, a new coach, right, after Jill Ellis stepped down. So what a great, again, like I'm almost thinking as a coach, and if I was in the seat, and obviously you've got to have a bit of bravery and the stones to go, yeah, goodbye, Carly Lloyd, thanks for all you've done. Like that's not everyone's gonna.
It's gonna happen at some point, right?
Yeah, but eventually it's got to. Yeah. And so, like, who's competing for her spot? And fair play to her, she comes in and tries to play the way she's always played, and she's obviously still a phenomenal player. And I know I'm singling her out right now, but again, like, surely this type of camp is to build the competition for those places by being out there, right, being on the field.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I don't know, like, interesting spot that the men and the women are both in at the moment.
Right.
Seeing like they're in camp, they're in camp each right now in their own entity, and just seeing how the coaching staff and whatever you're kind of handling the progression of their respective sides of it. So
exactly.
I guess we'll see how it pans out over the next
year. I think like I said, there are two different spectrums, right? So one is best team in the world right now, and the other one is trying to figure out who they are. So we'll see where that ends up. I just hope for the men's sake, they kind of just get back to being relevant again for a little bit. I mean, maybe quarterfinalists, something like that. I don't know if we can ever compete with the higher ends of the world at any point in time. But just getting back to those days for us where we're, on the map, you gotta play well to beat us, whatever it may be.
Yep. Well, saying about coaching and new coaches in for the women's program, we've woke up this morning to news of a firing in the Premier League.
Yep.
Young and inexperienced manager, head coach, as the axe has swung and he's packing up his stuff, which is Frank Lampard at Chelsea. You got some thoughts and opinions on that?
Yeah, I didn't see it coming. I mean, I probably would have saw it a week ago or a week and a half ago after they lost the Premier League game, but it didn't happen. So it's like, okay, maybe they're gonna give him some time and to move on and to get better. And but it seems like I don't know what your thoughts are, but it seems a little rash, right? I mean, a little harsh in terms of kind of, he's practically got a new squad, trying to figure that piece out. Players are in and out of form. Could they be doing better? I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of teams would probably say that, right? That they could be doing better. Look at Liverpool right now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was surprising for sure. For me, it's like, what direction they go in now? Who's going to come in and just make things better all of a sudden, right? I mean, I don't think it was Lampard, in my opinion. I don't think it was his doing that. It was just new pieces of the puzzle and trying to figure that out, and probably deserve more time. Similar to, what was it? We were probably 2 or 3 months back where Ale was in this situation, right? Everybody wanted him out, and the powers to be kind of stuck with them, and look where they are now, right? So,
yeah, I think
who's to say he couldn't have turned it around?
Yeah, to think about Ollie and Champions League qualification is in his own hands. He needs 1 point from out of one game or another, and doesn't do it, loses both.
Right.
And you're like, bro, Glazer family are gonna, or Ed Woodward, whatever.
Right.
But I guess, with Lampard, it's almost they built a culture around, not giving managers that opportunity to hit like 6 weeks ago, Chelsea are top of the league.
Right.
And they lose against Everton 1-0, and then they've been on that slump, and Chelsea never seem to give the manager that like opportunity to go back up again, like to get themselves out. Like they have one dip and it's gone.
Right.
Like Jose's second stint with them, like won the league, started the season all rough, had a bad preseason because they had the weird like Southeast Asia or China kind of visit, and it basically got like, it was a total disaster. Right. And they start the Premier League and they're like 15th after 6 games, and they fired Jose, and you're like, you're the reigning champions. What are you doing?
Right.
Like, and you have Jose Mourinho. It's like there's almost like, I've read some stuff this morning on BBC Sport and just other bits and pieces on social media, and it's like typical Chelsea. That's like everyone's takeaway from it. Like, it's what Chelsea do, and you just like, well,
right. Yeah, that's what I kind of saw as well.
Yeah,
There's Sky and stuff like that.
Yeah. And to do it to the club's all-time top scorer as well.
Yeah, like a freaking legend in the club, right? And you're just like, see ya.
Yeah, even he can't get, I'll dig us out of it. He already took over, and they were in a transfer ban.
Right.
He got to an FA Cup final and finished 4th when he couldn't sign any players because they had a transfer ban for violating UEFA transfer something.
Right. Yeah. So we came into a sticky situation already.
Yeah, and on the up, he spent a bunch of money in the summer, which maybe some of those signings haven't settled in. They haven't yet worked out. But again, that's part of the journey, right? Like, not every signing is a
home run.
Bruno, right? Not every signing is a Bruno Fernandes.
Right.
Who comes in and is just like, off running and flying. Like, look at the second coming of Pogba in Manchester United lineup. Like, it's taken him. He's been back for 2 or 3 years, and he's only just, but he's played well for 4 games, and we're like, there he is. Like, we've been waiting 2 years.
Right.
So yeah, it's a bit, I don't know, it's a bit rough on Frank. And obviously, if I am a good, a comrade, given that he's a young English manager, I'm like, well, you kind of want, selfishly, I personally want those young former players, those young English do well, because someone's eventually probably going to take the national team job somewhere down the line. And just for the good of the game, the Premier League, I think, is better for having domestic kind of in-house, or if you will, of some managers. You can't always rely on signing these big name managers from overseas. And I also think that about like over this side with the MLS. Like, I love seeing these young American coaches that
exactly
they get a crack at it. Right, you don't want to always like. I'm not too impressed with Inter Miami appointing Phil Neville.
Right.
Because everyone will go, oh, it's David Beckham's mate, and it's like, whatever. And Bex has said, like, well, he's got the credentials, he's got the experience, he's been a national team manager, blah 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 blah. But it's like, you couldn't have found an American coach for an MLS team. Like, you couldn't have gone out there and found someone. Like, you could have maybe gone and opened up negotiations with Jeremy at Stanford, because he's been linked with some MLS jobs, right? In the
he has.
Years. And it's like, go after a guy that's been over here longer. And MLS is such a nuanced league with the transfers and the caps and allocation money, and it's a weird world to try and manage. And Phil Neville's got to come in and
it's almost like it's foreign to him, right? Because it's not going to be.
He's going to be like, I want to sign that guy, and they're like, well, we have to spend allocation money here. We get targeted allocation money and general allocation money, and we have to give up a draft pick. And Phil Neville's going to be like, but yeah, it blows my mind, MLS.
Right.
So yeah, unfortunate for Lampard, but I guess typical Chelsea, right?
For me, it's going to be who's going to want to come in and take over, right? On a almost right now, kind of a sinking ship, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's Thomas Tuchel is the big name that's linked with it,
right?
Obviously, he got fired from PSG,
right?
Which makes, I don't know, kind of makes sense for Chelsea to go after the,
I would have guessed it's
like
going to be a big,
seed,
it's going to be a big name guy, right? It's going to be someone that has skin in the game somewhere else that is done well, and it's going to make a splash, right? Because that's what Roman's all about, right? Is making the splash, and but who knows, right? Who knows?
We'll see.
Yep.
Well, our kind of final little piece, I think, for us there was a rematch.
It was, yes.
We had the disappointment of a 0-0, kind of like meh game between United and Liverpool.
Very nah.
Meh. At Anfield last week, and they drew each other fourth round of the FA Cup, which is England's big knockout tournament. They were to play each other 7 days later, which was actually at Old Trafford. So it was change in lineup for United anyway. They made 5 changes, and we actually got some goals. We had a 5-goal thriller. It's been described as United winning 3-2. What did you think of this kind of the rematch?
No, I mean, it was what we were wanting to see in the first matchup, right? Some goals and some creativity, and it was almost like maybe not so much Liverpool, because I felt like Liverpool was very, attacking minded against us in that first game. But for us, in terms of our setup, and it was almost like Ole, put the guard down and said, go play and go be free and go be creative and go figure it out, and scored some great goals out of it. Liverpool did as well. It was a fun, exciting match, and good guys came out on top. So it's always a good day when those things happen. So great goals. Probably could have been more. I mean, honestly, for both teams, could have been 7 or 8 goals that was scored in that match.
Henderson made a couple of saves there.
He made a couple of good saves. Cavani hit the post at the end. But I thought pretty much every goal was great. Both sides, good moments.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the lineup for United anyway. I could look it up very quickly now to see it. I don't think Liverpool did make a couple of changes, but I'll start with United because obviously I know that they made 5 changes, one being the goalie, so they gave Hendo the run out.
Right.
Put Lindelof back in.
Yeah,
and Lindelof played. Yeah,
Lindelof. Bailly wasn't even in the lineup. He wasn't even on the sheet.
Yeah, but Lindelof had played last time at Anfield in the 0-0, so in a way, same you could say. But then no Fred, who has really been shining for United in that holding mid role. Rashford came back in again, even though he played technically in the week before, but he didn't start in the midweek game. And then the big one for me was Van de Beek and not Bruno in the hole there at the 10. And even saying that this game was a 3-2 game, I think, and even to tie in what we were talking about earlier with giving people opportunities who maybe don't get the minutes, like we were talking about the national team stuff. I feel like Donny again just missed an opportunity to really. It seems like there's a lot of press around like how good Van de Beek is, and then every time he comes in, it's kind of like I feel bad for him. He misses that. It's like he's missing out. He misses that opportunity to go like, no, I'm good. Like I can do this. I can play this role. He plays for his national team. He plays for Holland. Scores goals. I've seen him play very, very well for Holland, and
for sure. I mean,
in big stage again, like play Liverpool. You're at Old Trafford. Bruno sat on the bench, probably just staring him down the whole game because we know Bruno's an emotional guy, right?
Yeah, he wants to be on the pitch the whole time,
and I'm sure he wants his teammate to do well. I don't think he's cynical, but he's certainly a competitor. And Donny just looked lost. Like he just didn't seem to know where to find those little pockets. And I thought Liverpool's counter press was very good. And we're not great at the back anyway. Like it seems like we want to adopt this style of coming out from the back, almost like the classic Pep Barcelona way or whatever.
Right.
The fashionable way.
But we don't have the right players for that.
Yeah, Maguire and Lindelof. There's not like we're gonna. I mean, the Liverpool second goal was from a failed build, which was actually Cavani that gave the ball away. But But yeah, I just feel like when that happens, when the counter press is good, it takes a 10 to find those little pockets, right, to help you get out with maybe a 25, 30-yard ball. And every time it seemed like the counter press was set, I'm like, okay, bypass and find Donny or find Cavani.
Right.
Like Van de Beek was just nowhere to be seen, and I was just like, he's not there yet. Like,
that was when that signing came through, it was almost one of those like question marks, right? Like, why are you bringing this guy in when I mean, I guess you're bringing him in for cover in terms of if something happens to Bruno or something like that. But if Bruno's healthy and willing to play and able to play, you're not taking him off the field, right? You might give him a rest here or there, but so yeah, I think it's just been tough. I mean, it's almost like one of those situations he comes in to play where it's like it's a no-win situation for him, right? It's like I think he could even play super well. I mean, like you're saying, I agree with you. I don't think he played particularly well in the match, but let's say he did. It's not like he's going to be on the team sheet the next game.
Right. Yeah.
It's gonna be Bruno, right? So I don't know if the guy can do any right now and get into the side.
Right. That's a good point.
To those things. So that's why it kind of it baffled me a little bit on the signing in general on why you would bring a guy like that in. Because really you have Pogba that could play that role as well if something happened to Bruno, right? I mean, he doesn't like to defend anyways. Granted, when Bruno's in, he needs to be on the field as well, and so he has more of a defensive responsibility. But I feel bad for the guy. I mean, because I feel like he can and probably will do some great things, but just kind of get a bad luck right now with kind of who he's behind in general.
Yeah, and the form of, like you say, it's the form of Bruno.
Bruno right now, he might be. I mean, he might be the best player in the world right now. I mean, he's playing that well and what he's contributed to United and where they're at. He's definitely probably the best player in the Premier League right now by far, especially with De Bruyne being hurt now. Yeah, I mean, tough luck. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Get back to training, work hard, and
right.
Go have some healthy competition.
Right.
Like I say, that's where I think it's that missed opportunity, right? If he's like, it's all speculation, but like if he's training at the level every day, right, and he's putting it in, and he's this and he's that, it's like you would hope anyway. Given his chance with the starting jersey, he'd thrive. He knows there's a bit more of an identity United now, where it's like if you're going to play the 10, we know what. Like you've got to kind of make it look like what Bruno's been successful at doing. So it's like it's not up for debate what that role is right now.
Yeah.
Well,
it's just like how we tell our players, maybe not so much at your level, but at the competitive level, right? It's you need to be doing stuff that's going to force us not to take you off the field. Right. You need to be making that impact on there. Right. And when you don't do those things, it makes our job easier to say, yep, no, we're going with this. We're going with this player instead. And I mean, I hope he keeps working and keeps a good attitude about it and continues on. And, I think it will fall for him at some point in time, but,
and that's what I hope. I don't want him to fail by any means.
No, not at all.
There's little bits.
I think he's a good player. I mean,
there's little bits in the media, right? There seems to be some. I mean, it seems to be the way with the former Dutch players, quite outspoken.
Right.
Van Gaal, obviously a highly regarded manager, stuck the knife in a bit and was like, said words to that effect of like it was a wasted signing, a wasted opportunity, and if he was Donny, he'd get him out of there, and he'd blah blah blah, and you just leave the kid alone. Like it's
right.
Like I'm disappointed he didn't take his opportunity, but at the same time, I don't want him to go anywhere. I don't want United to sell him. I don't think he's a bad player.
No, not at all.
But yeah, hopefully over time he comes good. So that actually, it just popped in my head. Kind of leads me towards talking about Luke Shaw, which we kind of texted about. Obviously on an upslope in terms of form, maybe through competition, they signed Telles. And I think even Shaw came out and said, like, I've had to up my game if I want to play on this team because Alex Telles is right there ready to go. And obviously been playing great in the last couple of games. And then, this FA Cup game was not.
He was not good on that one. Not good at all. Yeah, I mean, pretty much every goal came from, his side of the field or ended with his side of the field. Yeah, a chance or whatever. I mean, Salah just pretty much – I mean, it was funny. I mean, probably everybody that followed United Liverpool in that first game, the running joke was that Salah was in Shaw's pocket and, he appreciated it being nice and warm for him and all that stuff. And then this game, it was this game was totally different, right?
Got
So,
out.
I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, Salah made him look like a, probably a, one of the youth players, because it was, yeah. I mean, he pretty much had his way with whatever he wanted to do at any point in time. And he scored 2 great goals, probably could have had a third or fourth, being on that right side of the field. So
Yep.
it was,
The first goal, right? We were like immediately texting, and James as well.
Yep.
Between Lindelof and Shaw, we could have filmed like this, right? I think it was James that said, right? We could have filmed an hour analysis just in one pass that splits 2 players and Salah scores. We could have filmed an hour analysis of how not
to defend, right? Yeah. Well, and what was funny about that, and I think I made this point, was Lindelof, it looked like he was chasing ghosts. Like he went to the right.
He went
thinking,
inside. Yeah,
he went inside thinking like someone was running in behind him, and Salah was on the far side of Shaw. And so it was, just an absolute mess.
But yeah, perfect storm of how not to do it.
Right,
exactly. Great finish once he got in as well.
Oh, phenomenal. I mean, just the composure and, weaker foot per se, and the little cheekiness of the chip.
Yeah.
Bravo, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the so-called dark cloud that's over him in particular. Obviously, Liverpool just seem to be in a bit of a rut at the moment, but like a bit of negative vibes and some negative press around Salah at the moment. Even though he's scored 19 goals already this season, it's not like he's not like he scored 3, and is really not making an impact statistically anyway. But yeah, he was Salah just tore Luke Shaw apart yesterday with his movement, right? It's the intelligence and movement and the threat. Is he pulling wide and he wants it to feet, and Shaw's like, do I go with, do I not? And then he'll go press him, which creates that gap, and then they play the through ball, and just I think Shaw probably went and sat in a dark room after that game yesterday.
Oh yeah,
because Salah just tore him apart. Quality player.
100%. He's one of the best right now for sure. So,
alrighty. You got anything else, mate?
No, man. It's just excited to chat with your mates here in the next segment, and learn a little bit about what you guys do over there and how that all looks in comparison to America over here.
Yeah, and I think I'll probably learn a few things or two now. I'm 10 plus years over this side.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure it's changed a little bit, right?
So it's probably changed. Yeah, it's probably changed from what I remember. And actually, so we'll find out once we chat with Will. He's currently coaching and kind of administratively oversees the schoolboy football in the kind of the region that I'm from back home. Like I was saying in last week's episode over what brought me to play against Wayne Rooney when I was a kid was schoolboy football, and that's the world that Will coaches in right now. But yeah, when we chat with him, he'll kind of give us the rundown, and I guess I'll find out if that system has changed and that pathway has changed with the academy system now dominating development more so than when I was playing as a kid, and even I played in one of the first versions of an academy system. So shows a big evolution of how that's gone over the last 20 years or so since I was in that realm. So, but anyway, stay with us on Shankapotamus, because we, like I say, we'll be back with another special guest from overseas, Mr. Will Rowlands, who's a very, very close friend of mine, and yeah, it should be a fun conversation. So stay with us.
Yep.
Right, here we are. Welcome back to episode 5 of Shankapotamus. We are very pleased to be joined along with Jay Hamilton and myself is Will Rowlands. Hi, Will.
Good evening.
Hi, mate. So appreciate you giving us the time. Looks a bit dark the other side of the Atlantic.
Yeah. Nearly past my bedtime.
Again there. So we just wanted to kind of bring you on. We've been texting back and forth for a little while about having this kind of chat and interview, if you will, over like the different kind of systems and setups from back home for me, obviously back in England, and then versus how it all looks here. And obviously you have experience of being over this side in your younger days, and you were the one who ultimately dragged me over the Atlantic, right? 10 plus years ago. So, but if you just let our listeners and viewers know who you are, where you come from, who your family is, and how you like your tea or coffee, and yeah, just give us a bit of background on you, mate.
Yeah, Sam. Well, firstly, thanks for obviously having me on, and letting me come and sort of speak all things soccer and football. Obviously, there's not much else we can talk about at the moment with us being in lockdown over here. But yeah, my name's Will. I run Wirral Schools FA, which it's a bit difficult to explain the level that we sit at in the youth system in the UK. But essentially, we are a separate level that sits almost underneath academy football and just slightly above grassroots football. But it's a separate entity in itself. So we do have players that come into us from academy football as well as grassroots. So we're kind of like a sideways step, but it's obviously a step where grassroots players can come in and take advantage of that level by playing with academy level players and against academy level players, but also academy level players coming into the system and experiencing the competitive nature of our level, because that's the thing about schools football across the UK, is that it's to do with the competitiveness, especially at district level, where maybe as a comparison over in the US, it might be something like ODP level, where there is a competitiveness to it. It's not just about friendly games, or it's not just about sort of mini tournaments. There is a competitiveness to it, and obviously, Ian, you'll know because you played in at this level. Is if you have a Wirral versus Liverpool fixture, it's as important as anything else. It can be blood, sweat, and tears, because there is that rivalry between the two areas. You're not playing just for a team; you're playing for an actual area where you physically live or attend school. So you've got that sort of competitive nature. Obviously, in terms of myself, I got involved after I came back from the States, which is quite nearly 11 years ago, where I felt I'd done a good 4 years working out of Red Bull New York, and I just sort of felt that I needed to either take a different direction, and so I came home. Admittedly, that direction wasn't where I was expecting it to be, but hey ho, it is what it is. I don't have any regrets. And yeah, I left you, my little sidekick over there, and you refused to come home. Even though we tried to get you, but
Yeah. I was kicking and screaming to go out there, and then by the time I got out there, I didn't want to come back.
Well, yeah, and
here I am.
I know you just kept going further and further inland, so we couldn't find you. But yeah, so obviously I came back, and then I got involved with Wirral Schools FA, whereby I literally had taken the association from, dare I say it, having two teams to, admittedly we're in the middle of the pandemic, but two teams to having hopefully next season 5 teams, one of which will be a girls' team, which we've never ever had before. Which that's my sort of philosophy, that I want to keep growing things. I want to keep giving opportunities. Admittedly, we will share players with other teams, etc. But that's not, that doesn't mean that those players won't benefit from being involved in us as well as their team. But yeah, I've developed it over the years. We've had quite a lot of success. I won't hide from it. You know, we won the national trophy for the very first time in our history. It was about 4 years ago now, 2017, and that was massive. You know, and that's a competition that is run nationally, and you can play all over the country against opposition. You know, I think we went up to the top end of Carlisle, which is on the border of Scotland, as far over as Newcastle, and then we've been as far south, you know, as sort of Telford, Shropshire, West Midlands, and then obviously we met in the final. Swansea. You know, so we were very, very good that year, and the players were fantastic and really pulled it out of the bag. But the beauty of playing in that national competition is obviously the players get to really use it as a platform, but they get the venues to perform in. So the final was held in a professional stadium. It was held at Birmingham City. So, you know, it's something for the players to look back on, you know, when they're older. You know, if they stop playing football at whatever stage, we're hopefully with a lot of pride, you know, that they achieved something because they did. You know, and considering we're not as, should we say, we're not as well off in terms of the players as other associations, such as Liverpool, where they've got such a massive pull of players. You know, we played Liverpool that year in the semi-final, and every single player was at an academy. You know, you're talking an EPP academy, either Cat 1 or Cat 2. And we only had, I think, a handful of players at a Cat 3 academy at that time. You know, so it shows that it doesn't matter how good those players may be. You know, ultimately, it comes down to wanting to win it more. And you know, and that's the thing, you know, for the Wirral. Obviously, Ian knows because that's where he grew up. Is we're not a particularly we've got a lot of talented players, but they do tend to just, you know, go off to different, you know, to different areas to play football rather than stay on the Wirral. So it was good. So that's pretty much the overview of who I am and what I do for Wirral in terms of football, soccer over here.
Yeah. Give us kind of take us through how those players are recruited, how you form the groups. What's the I guess how the district, the catchment area of the district, is a little peninsula just outside of Liverpool. For those that are listening and watching, and we're about 7 miles across and 11 miles north and south, and you know, small little region outside of a major metropolitan city. And but take us through how you kind of bring players in and what the process is to form now hopefully 5 teams that you'll get to next year.
Yeah, so we trial, so we will set up trials at a certain point in the year. Usually once the season's finished, we go straight into trial season, and we'll invite the schools to nominate players who they feel are of a good enough standard. Again, you know, I'm not going to shy away from the fact that we exist to be competitive. So, you know, whilst we will try and give opportunities to everyone, you know, what we won't be doing is giving opportunities to those players who, you know, who like me, when I was growing up, you know, you're not good enough. You know, we will actively speak with the schools, the PE teachers who run obviously the departments and the teams at the various age groups, and we'll say, right, you know, who are your best 3-4 players in your group, and we'll ask them to send them along to trial, and we might get trial of say 50 or 60 kids, and then we'll whittle that down to a squad of 18 to 20 that we'll then take forward for the season. Ideally, what we try to do is we try to trial once at the youngest age group and select a squad that we feel is going to go through to the very end. So the very end being under 15s usually, although we're looking at under 16s for next season. But with the end point being a U15, whereby we're not having to do three or four trials. So we're not having to do one under 12s, 13s, 14s, 15s.
Okay.
You're basically doing it under 12s or under 13s, and then you've got a core of players that you want to see progress with you through until under 15s, and then just you're looking at your scouting networks in terms of speaking to your PE teachers in the schools and trying to essentially keep them on board, so that if there is a player out there that has been missed, or for example a player has suddenly come on the radar out of nowhere, that we can still look to try and invite them in and let them use our level to try and propel themselves up. They might be playing grassroots, and it might be that they're absolutely dominating grassroots, but then they come into us and it's a little bit of a leveler, because suddenly they might be playing with and against higher level players. So then you start to see, can they step it up again? And then sometimes they do. And so then you're looking at your networks of speaking to your academy teams, the clubs around our area, saying, right, well, this kid, is he, have you ever heard of him before? No? Okay, well, I think he's worth coming in on trial with you, just have a look at it. And we've done that, quite a lot over the years, because ultimately you want to see players progress, don't you? You want to see.
We're all in it for, right?
Yeah, exactly. And obviously we do that from, absolutely out of the goodness of our own heart. We want to see them come in, take advantage of our level, go to the next level, and smash it there, and then hopefully start to put themselves on a career path of being involved in football for as long as possible.
Right.
Will, how long are you talk about the trials and bringing kids in for trials? How long does that usually last for them, and how long do you guys give them to showcase what they can and can't do during that time?
Yeah, so in terms of the trial format, we try and do 3 trials because we have such a volume of players that come in. It's hard to really put together, say, a 5 or 6 week block of training. Mainly because, again, we're all volunteers, so we don't have that free time available, because our volunteer coaches will be doing other things. So what we try to do is try to do 3 trials. We try to bring them in en masse and do short-sided games. Just a good hour and a half, 2 hours, short-sided games, put them into teams, and almost like a round-robin tournament. So we might play 5 or 6 aside, and then you start to see from that the technical side of it. It's something pretty much like when I was at Red Bull, the regional development school, how they sort of formatted it. They basically sort of went en masse, and then they picked out the technical players, and then started to formulate the RDS locations, so that if they had 20 places available, they weren't giving out 20 places to kids who could just barely stand up. They were giving it out to kids who stood a chance of that extra bit of training and taking them to the next level. So we then whittle it down to the next trial, which would be usually 8v8 or 9v9, and then the third trial is usually 11v11, where we will probably have the numbers down at that point to about 23, 24. So we've got 2 11v11 teams plus a couple of subs, whereby we can then start to look at who can play in certain positions. So we always know who the centre halves are, because they're usually massive, and they just boot balls, and usually know who the strikers are, because they're either quick or they can dribble a ball more than 5 yards. So you start to look at that and start to formulate it into how you want to play or how we want to play in the systems that we do. And obviously, from my point of view, I like to play a mixture of 4-3-3 into a 4-5-1. You know, in and out of possession. So I start to look at that and go, right, okay, he's looking good on the technical side. Get him to the 11v11. Sometimes they fall apart because they've either never ever been coached at 11v11, or they've never been coached at all. So all they are is just running around, and when they don't get the ball, that's when they start to fall, usually fall apart and not be able to perform.
It's interesting to see that, isn't it, with players, with the not lack of structure, or just like your level has obviously a higher level of structure, and that's what often we see, Jay, right, on our side of things, is player can look raw, right, raw technical, raw speed, something or other, and that there's that little bit, the refinement hasn't quite been worked on, and that's where, like, you see that players will stick out, good or bad, in a full-sided 11v11 format. It's on us as coaches then to take the gamble, right, or take the risk on, is there something to work with, or should we, say no at this time and try to, see them in another year, or, continue their development, or however that may go.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just thinking about you were just saying about plugging them into certain roles and the way you want to play. Do you ask anything of the PE teachers at the schools for positions, or are you more concerned with just give me the best kids you have at your school, and then it's up to you and the staff to kind of formulate a team?
We want to get as much background as we can on it. Excuse me, frog in the throat here. What we don't want to do is we don't want to go in blind, where we know nothing about them, and so we try to do a bit of due diligence, because otherwise they could turn up, look fantastic on day one, and we could take them through to day 3 to trial 3, and we've made a mistake. So we want to make sure we know who's who, who's where, who's what. Yeah.
I guess I'm trying to circle back around to think about the US system. You mentioned before in our previous episode, actually, I kind of told my little claim to fame story about playing against Wayne Rooney when I was with Wirral, in the 10 level. And I mentioned in that little episode that Jay and I did last time about it being that kind of, for those listening, is ODP is probably the equivalent now, given strong academy systems on both sides, both in the UK and the US, and it's on people like yourself and the equivalent coaches over here to almost accept, which I think, and I know that you and the staff have done a good job of almost accepting your position now in the hierarchy. Like, you will get the attention of academy kids, but I guess my question is, how many kids from the world do you think, like, almost turn their nose up at the opportunity for the level, and how often do you encounter that, by the time you make an invite and the parents like, wow, like, have you ever encountered that in an almost negative way of like, well, we're above that?
Yeah, definitely. We've had it a few times over the years where certain players will be at, excuse me, sorry, I've had a bit of a cold all weekend, typically. We've had some players where they've been at, for example, Everton or Liverpool, and the parents don't want them playing at our level because they feel that either they're overplaying or the standard isn't going to add anything to their development. A lot of the time, it's unfounded, and it's just parents being overprotective, or, dare I say it, hoodwinked by the academy system, whereby little Johnny's in at Liverpool or Everton, and they don't want them doing any other football other than with them, because understandably they see them as an asset, and and they don't want to see that asset, damaged in any way. I had a couple of seasons ago now. I have to think what season we're in because of this pandemic. I had a couple of seasons ago. There was a very, very good team for Knowsley, which is across the water from where we are, and they had 8 academy players. And I know the chairman of Knowsley very, very well, and he basically had to use all his collateral, should we say, if that's the right word, to get those players to play for it. Otherwise, he just wouldn't have had a competitive side. Luckily, those players did play for him, and they had a very, very, very competitive side. In fact, they should have won the national trophy that year. They were that good. But we do encounter that on the Wirral. I've had it probably 3 or 4 times over the past 10 years. And all you can do, really, say to the parents, well, this is what we're about. This is what we do. This is how we do it. If they don't want to do it, then hey ho.
Yep.
You can't force them. But usually they do come round. They do come round because they realise, oh, actually, yeah, it could be a benefit. And ultimately, it keeps their kid in the shop window.
Yeah. How much do you actively kind of maintain relationships with some of the academy outfits, or do you at all? Or I guess I almost think it's probably club by club, right? But do you kind of sweat that at all? Of should I call to the Everton coach or a director, program director, academy director, or whatever the title may be? Do you kind of?
We used to. The thing with the academy system is that there's so much change. So I used to be able to ring up, the head of academy recruitment at Everton and say, right, I need such and such, and he'd be like, yeah, Sam, but I don't even know who that is now.
Right. And
that's the issue, because they're not going to suddenly say, oh, right, when they get into a position, I'm going to give Will a ring and tell him who I am, and and all that. They've got too much to sort out to worry about that. So it's the change that does affect it the most. One of the biggest things, believe it or not, is the shutting of academies. Round us now, we've got Liverpool and Everton, obviously. The next nearest one to that is probably Wigan.
Okay. Or about just under an hour.
Yeah, Wigan and Crewe. They are both Cat 3 academies. So Liverpool and Everton, obviously, your top Cat 1 academies. Top of the tree. Crewe and Wigan, your Cat 3s. And I know that Wigan were obviously looking to become Cat 2, but obviously they're struggling financially at the moment. So all that sort of talk's on hold. But that's the sad fact for talented players on the Wirral, is that that's how far they're going to have to go to be part of the academy system. Which is it's hard, and again, with those, the staff just constantly change. I used to know, probably 2-3 years ago, who was what coach at what age group at said club.
Yeah.
I don't, because again they just constantly flip in. The Welsh system sort of taken a lot of players from the Wirral. Because again, it's so much closer. In terms of the standard, yes, there's a couple of youth side, a couple of sides who are trying to do the things the right way, like Connor's Key Nomads, Airbus, but the standard just isn't there because they haven't got access to those players, and they are still operating a paid for service in Wales, whereas in the EPPP system of England, obviously everything is funded.
Yeah, it's funded. Even down to Cat 3, right?
Yeah.
Go on, Jay, sorry.
No, I was going to ask, just kind of piggybacking off that piece with, losing kids to academy or having that. Do you ever have, or have you ever had players where it's like they just need that, they need to be pushed in that direction and need to go to that direction? Is that, a certain circumstance where you make those calls and stuff?
Yeah.
I get the travel and stuff. It sounds like that's an issue in terms of that, but are there times where a player's just outgrown their environment that you have currently or have had that you say, look, you need to go this direction?
Yeah. We have, and quite a number of times, to be honest, where even from academy to academy, we'll have players sort of come into us, say at a Cat 3 academy, and they'll just absolutely motor. They'll push on within 6 months, and we'll be saying to them, you need to try and get yourself at a higher level, a Cat 2 or a Cat 1 academy. Sometimes you then encounter a little bit of, they like being a big fish in a small pond, so to speak, and they don't want to then move because they're just very, very comfortable in their environment. Understandable. But what we would then help to assist with, as in any way we can, is those avenues into Cat 1s or Cat 2s where they can hopefully then go and try and move on to the next level.
Okay, everyone, welcome back. Part 2 of our conversation with Will Rowlands, who is, I guess we could say, program director? Is that an equivalent? Administrator, head coach, water boy, cone picker,
yeah,
everything for Wirral Schoolboys, which is the level that I played at when I was a kid. And we want to kind of move the conversation over to the girls' side of football and soccer, and the kind of the progression and the development back in the UK. If you have any insight or anything for us, that kind of big picture stuff of where the girls game is heading back home.
Yeah. Well, firstly, it's heading in a really positive direction. Obviously, the WSL Women's Super League, that has become far more professional than it ever has been. I think it goes to show the strength of the league when you're bringing over 5 or 6 US women's national team players.
Yeah.
To come
another one just in the last couple of weeks on it,
So it goes to show the strength. Okay, that is backed up by the financial side of it. Where the likes of Man City, they've got money to burn. But I think the interesting one to speak about is actually Manchester United, where they held out, rightly or wrongly, for as long as possible in joining the Women's Super League. Why? I don't know, but it goes to show that what they were clearly doing in the background has worked, because obviously they are currently top of the tree. But what that has built over the past 2 seasons that they've been involved in the WSL at the top level is it's built a rivalry. It's built a rivalry with not only Manchester City, but also with Everton, with Liverpool, with Chelsea, with Arsenal, where there probably was already a rivalry there, but it's gone to a little bit of another level now. And the one thing that unfortunately does break my heart a bit is the fact that we obviously aren't allowed to have fans in the stadiums at present. So the WSL is still ongoing, but it's all behind closed doors. Now, the games are all on either the BBC, which is our national television broadcaster on one of the obscure channels, or they're on what's called FA Player. So the games are being shown live. It's just whether or not the girls themselves are actually are able to see it on the television, because sometimes they probably won't be. If they're having to fight with their brother or mum and dad for the remote control,
right?
I very much doubt that Manchester United women versus Everton women is going to be high on that television's agenda, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Which is sad, but so the point I'm sort of getting at is it's sad that they're not able to see those games live, because they are increasing in quality year on year, and coming over, those US based players coming over now, they're adding to the league. They're not just coming over here for a bit of a jolly. They're coming over here and they're actually adding to the standard, the quality, throughout. And it's in a really, really good place, the women's game at the moment. I really just hope it continues, because I've got a very young daughter. Obviously, my wife is very, very keen on the women's game, and I want to see the women's game develop organically. I don't want it to go stupid and end up, falling apart. But I want it to grow organically so that it can sustain itself, and it gives female footballers the opportunity to have a career. That they're not just they're not doing it as a part-time job, or they're having to go and work in Tesco's, for 3-4 days a week to top up their wages. I'd like it if that whole career pathway, really sort of developed further.
Yeah, I'm sure Ian told you, but we went to over to England and went to Leicester and did all that stuff, and it was just fascinating to hear. I'm one of the directors on the girls' side here, and so just kind of hearing their kind of history of the women's game and how irrelevant it was for so many years, and now it's kind of starting to get more and more relevant, like you're saying, and hopefully, probably it sounds like more financial backing in terms of wherever they're at and stuff like that. Are you seeing? You were over at the States a little bit, and I'm sure you saw the young females fascinated with watching the national team on TV and stuff like that. Are you seeing that now more in England with your younger female athletes in terms of knowing the players and watching it on when it's on TV and stuff like that, and trying to emulate those things?
I would say so. Yeah, I would say so. I think they're starting to realise that the girls or the women that they see playing on the television, it's not just a one-off event. It's actually something that they can watch the following week, and so they start to then pick up on who plays for who. So they, for example, they might start to recognise who Steph Horton is, more often, and then suddenly it will be, oh well, who does Steph Horton play with? Who does she play against, etc. And that side of it is building a lot. In terms of the development side of it, should we say the sort of the pathway from a young girl upwards, that is probably still very much a work in progress. I mean, I guess they probably all will be, but I think what the FA have tried to do in the short term, the past sort of 5 years, is get the top level sorted so that it's sustainable. But there's buy-in from all the big players. So they've now got the Manchester United on board, the City, the Everton, the Arsenal, the Chelsea, etc. But they've got the buy-in of, listen, this is what you need to invest to be part of it, and get that sort of level sorted. My hope then is that they're going to look at the bottom up, because we have on the girls' side, it doesn't follow the same pathway as the boys' side. So on the boys' side, you have what's known as the EPP, the Elite Player Performance Pathway, where academies are then graded Cat 1, 2, 3, and 4. On the girls' side, you have what's known as regional talent centres, and they can be attached to the pro clubs, but they don't have to be. So our county FAs, sometimes they run the regional talent centres themselves, because it might well be that there's no professional team that is either in the area or they want to take that opportunity up. It's a little bit sad, but that's where I just hope that over the coming years, the FA take a look at it from the bottom up now, because whilst they might have sorted the top level out, that's only got a finite time frame unless they sort the bottom out, because otherwise those players are just going to retire or move on, and there won't be anyone coming through. So that's my only hope, that they sort that bottom out.
Is it with probably limited resources in terms of everyone having? Sounds like you're getting ready to have a girls team, and others might be in the same situation. Is it tough to find other opponents or other teams to play in that, or is there a lot more travel involved in that when that happens?
Yeah, it's a strange one really, because there's plenty of, should we say, leagues to play at a grassroots level for girls, and obviously we've also got the rule that girls can play in boys football, mixed football up until the age of 18. Obviously, you very rarely see that over the age of, let's say, U12, just because I guess traditions start to creep through again, sadly.
Yeah.
But
and physicality as well, I guess.
And
Growth
physicality.
spurt and what have you.
Yeah. But yeah, in terms of it's just, I just would hope that we don't lose sight of what the big picture is. And in terms of ourselves, the issue that we have at district schools level, which is where we sit, is there isn't a girls' competition per se. And so what we're trying to do, so hopefully starting next season, is put a national competition in place, which is something I've been working on over the past, well, it should have come in for this season, but for obvious reasons it hasn't. But we're hoping for next season we put a national competition in place where it kind of mirrors what is on offer with the boys, but we do it organically rather than go, right, we're gonna run a national competition at 12s, 13s, 14s, 15s, right, and then suddenly everyone's like, they can't do it, and you've got like, out of 140 district associations in England, you've only got 20, but then they're so spread out. So we're trying to do it so that we capture one age group that can then feed into the following year age group and do it that way. Because this is, again, we're trying to change things from an English schools point of view, and almost playing catch up with what is going on. So outside of our sort of domain, in terms of getting games, there'll always be teams that will play each other, and I think in the girls' side of things, there's a lot more sort of consensus of, let's just get a game on. Even if it's a friendly, let's just get a game, let's play. Because they just want to play football. Right. I think with boys, it can get tribal. It can get quite. We're not going to play you because you're too good, or we're too good for you, sort of thing. With girls, I think they've got that authenticity of, we just want to play football.
Right.
We just want to play because we love it. And I hope that never leaves, to be honest.
Yeah, it sounds like you're riding it's almost that you're on the start of an upward trend. Hopefully, right? And there's sounds like across. I mean, that example of just, we'd rather just play than worry about who's better. Yeah. Is it competitive? Is it going to be a blowout? It's just more about just get out there and get the ball rolling. The the rest will take care of itself. And like you say, don't lose sight of the bigger picture. It may take. I mean, this generation of youth players that go up are going to, you get into that realm, don't you? They're going to become the next coaches. They're going to become the next administrators.
Yeah.
That would hopefully, in a generation's time, the female game in the UK is almost, maybe it could look something like, female participation over this side.
Yeah, well, that's the hope. I really do, fingers crossed, it happens, because I think with the girls' side of things, there's more opportunity for that to sustain itself in the long term, if it's done right. Now, I know people will say, well, what is right and what is wrong when it comes to development and systems and structures, etc. But I think if in this country, if we start going too competitive too soon, in terms of trying to push the girls through a system like we do with the boys, I think we'll get into the realms of what's happening with the boys, and that is that there's a massive drop-off rate at 16 to 18.
Yeah.
And what we want to do for these girls is we want them to stay involved in football, in sport, for as long as they can, and enjoy it. Not be in it, because they feel like they have to be, but because they want to be, and they want to stay in it. And like you say, Ian, go to the level of when they do finish playing, that they become administrators, or if they're not good enough, for example, that they start going down the other routes of being a referee or a coach. So we keep them in the football bubble, rather than just go, all right, well, yeah, I don't like this anymore, and I'm jacking it in. And that is what's happening in the boys. And the difference being, dare I say it, the difference being is it's all down to money. That's a sad thing about it.
Yep. Jay, do you have anything?
I got one last question, Will, and you have obviously a relationship with Ian, and you had I think you played with him a little bit. What type of, I think our viewers and listeners would like to know what type of player Ian was.
Got to keep it clean.
On a PG-13.
Yeah. In the nicest way possible, what type of player was Ian? Because I'm sure he's told us stories that he was one of the best ever and all that stuff. But I'm gonna guess that that's not true. So I want to hear it from the source, the proper source.
Wow.
He tried. He tried.
Oh,
bless
that's
him.
awesome.
Bless him. No, to be fair, he was an half decent player. It's one of them. I think in a way, Ian, you kind of sort of you show what the academy system is in this country and what it's like, and it captures a lot of players and they get access to some good coaching. But what it doesn't give them is the longer term aspects of the game. Like when you left, Tranmere, I think you were 14 or 15, weren't you?
Yeah.
When you left there, obviously, I don't know whether they tried to find you anywhere or fix you up on, another club. So really, you were just left to your own devices, and that's and it still goes on. Like it's not, it didn't end with Ian's age group, but that's the problem that we have in that there's just you're an asset until you don't become an asset in this country. And yes, there's a lot of noise being made about trying to improve the system, and I'm sure that there are some clubs out there that are very, very good at their welfare and their should we say their aftercare, but they're few and far between. And I think looking at the bigger picture in terms of youth development, which is what we're all about, the three of us, it's to look at the wider picture for that person, that player, that child. You know, we want them to be involved in sport, whether that's in football, soccer, or any other sport. We want them to be involved in it as long as they want and as long as they enjoy it. You know, because otherwise, you just lose them, don't you? You know, and that's ultimately what, in terms of going back to Ian, when you were growing up, Ian, I think, if there was something in place where Tranmere said to you, listen, we don't think it's going to happen for you here, but listen, we've fixed you up to go and play for, I don't know, Chester City at the time or somewhere else, maybe you would have had the bit between your teeth and gone, well, I'm going to show these they were wrong to get rid of me. Maybe not, who knows? But because that isn't there, then, you kind of just sort of shown the door and wished all the best for the future. And I think you then bounced around, obviously, the grassroots level of junior football, but also men's football as well, didn't you?
Yeah, I was playing men's by the time I was 17. Yeah, I had a year at Chester after Tranmere, and then that was when Chester fell apart and liquidated or whatever. They just disappeared. That before the Phoenix Club came, and then basically I was in men's open age men's football. 17-year-old kid.
But it wasn't men's football at a particularly good level, was it? I mean, back in the day when you were playing, the level itself was actually very, very good, for what it was. But it wasn't one where you were going to go and learn about tactics and shape and all that. It was literally, when you first ball, and if you don't, you were basically getting hooked at half time. It was all about
17 and had fitness levels. The team I played for played 3-5-2, so I was the 17-year-old, so that meant I was a wing back.
Yeah.
Because I was 17. Because I could get up and down.
Exactly.
But there was no consciousness to that pathway in the sense of this level isn't for you, so come to this level or we'll make calls and ultimately go here and learn about the men's game and play against grown men. It was just of my own devices, really. So continue to play and ultimately kind of followed in your footsteps over to this side of the Atlantic. And
I mean, and you forged a lovely career for yourself, where you've worked hard, and you've learned along the way, and picked up lots of things. I mean, okay, the grounding at Red Bull was very, very good for both of us, I think.
Oh yeah.
I think we were both very, very lucky, Jay, in terms of what we got given, at that time. I don't even think, I mean, I look back on it very fondly, but I don't even think that happens now. I don't think they get what we were given back then, and I've got nothing against anyone who is there now. They're brilliant people, that were there when we were there, but I think it was just the environment. We bounced off each other. We bounced off fellow coaches. We bounced off, obviously, our mentors, our managers, and we were just sponges, weren't we? And we were just soaking it up, and when you consider that you had that, at the time, you could just turn up to first team training and sit on the bleacher and just, there you go. You're just watching Thierry Henry ping it round for, for fun, But what we were able to do is we're able to soak that up. We were able to see what that first team picture looked like, but then start to try and relate it down to what we were working on, within the programs that we were in, in the travel teams that we were involved in. You start to sort of put that into your picture rather than just soak it up and leave it in the bank for another day. It was brilliant. I absolutely, if that could happen again, I think we'd all do it, wouldn't we?
Oh yeah, the access that you got as a youth coach, as a novice coach, as someone from overseas who was getting used to even just the way of life, like a cultural thing, is Red Bulls.
Well, it just sounds like there was a care there, right? Like they actually wanted you to, be a part of something that they were trying to do, which is good to see and good to hear, right? I mean, in the end.
definitely.
You definitely don't get that a lot.
No, in no uncertain terms, they would pretty much beat you in the back of the head with their marketing, their branding, their identity, their philosophy, coaching methodologies, and just said, here it all is, presented it to you. This is how we want it. And obviously there's personality in the delivery of all of that, but they were very clear on the expectations and how how you kind of wore the badge on your chest. Like I used to, you'd be on your way to a field, or the one year that Will and I were out there together, we'd drive to a field together or meet or whatever. You could even go into a mall and just kill time if you were early, or Dunkin' Donuts or something, and then you'd almost stand like with your chest puffed out, like, this is who I am for. There was they instilled that confidence in you as well, of like to go be the man. Like, I'm great. I'm learning. I'm really proud of what I'm doing. And there's any young and novice youth coaches out there that that are thinking of heading that way, I would certainly recommend it, because it's set me up certainly for what I'm doing currently for the club, and I'm sure Will, like you said, by the time you headed back to the UK, it's you took that experience, the amount of hours you can log with them is just phenomenal.
We were full-time coaches. We were professional coaches. So whilst there was obviously we're only getting paid for certain hours of delivery, all the other hours, it was then down to you as to what you wanted to do, and some of them, some of the coaches we work with, they just wanted it to be a jolly. That's fine, everyone's got their own intentions. But then you have the other end of the scale, where one of my old housemates, Johnny McKinstry, is now the manager of the Ugandan national team, because that's what he wanted to do. He wanted, and I remember very clearly sitting in the living room one day, he wanted to be a national team manager, and he wasn't stupid enough or naive enough to say I wanted to be the Northern Ireland national team manager or England or whatever. It was, he will happily go and work anywhere in the world to be a national team manager. And he's done Rwanda, he's at Uganda, he did the Sierra Leone, he did that gig for I think 2 or 3 years, and you look at the experience that he's then built, from doing that, and there's no doubt in my mind that we will see him rock up on these shores at some point in the next few years, because he's that focused on being, the best that he can be. But he was, Ian will testify, he was never arrogant with it. He was never, oh, I've got my A license and I'm only 23. He was, you could talk to him, couldn't you? Anything you wanted to chat, well, within reason, obviously, but, you could just have a normal conversation with him, and he'd talk to you and he'd say, well, how about you try this, and how about you do this, and he was brilliant. Yeah, it was very, very good.
Yeah, the people didn't last very long, did they, if they came in with any sort of arrogance?
Ego, no.
They get found out pretty quick. There was a really good culture there.
Yeah, which is funny when
what everyone builds, isn't it? In your own, now you at Wirral, I know you've got a little cohort of coaches, and myself with us, you want to build a good culture within your coaches, right? You don't want to, you're not going to throw a contract at someone to come and coach a team and have them tell you, in our roles, right, as kind of program leaders and directors, but there's got to be that mutual respect as well. It's not like from our end we bark at the coaches in a certain delivery. So Red Bull certainly had that culture of the ones who came in with a bit of a chip on the shoulder got found out pretty quick.
Oh yeah, and they were fun times. Yeah.
Well, I think we could probably wrap it up around here, mate. I just want to thank you again for donating some time for you. I know your little one was supposed to be in bed and not cooperating, and I know it's getting on a bit back in the UK as we talk right now. So mate, really appreciate your time. Thanks for your insight.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
No, thanks, gents. Thanks. Listen, any time. I've probably got another 3 months of lockdown, so trust me. Talking about football, I think it's the only thing we can talk about at the moment.
Right.
But yeah, just wish you all the best. and enjoy. Just keep enjoying coaching. Keep enjoying it.
Yep.
Well, yeah, stay safe, stay indoors, and
Yep.
do all the things so that you can get back on the field soon and wash your hands and
face,
wear a mask.
space.
Yeah. So, yeah, thanks again, mate.
Yep.
Those that are still listening or watching, really, Jay and I have a little 9v9 whiteboard kind of tactics thing coming up here shortly. So stay with us on Shankapotamus.